Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to my channel. Chien-Pao is in a pretty good spot, I think, going into the World Championships, performing pretty well at NAIC, really good results online as well in Japan, and I want to kind of talk to you exactly what its matchups are and kind of where its weaknesses may sort of fly here. But I think Chien-Pao is a really good pick for the World Championships in a couple of weeks' time, and I want to talk to you exactly why, if I was going to Worlds, I would be playing Chien-Pao. So if we look at NAIC, it did really well in day 1 and day 2, making the graphic on both sort of days bare, but being 9.1% and 7.7% respectively. No one really expected that. They expected the dip like Maride on the exit at EUIC, but I think it's really powerful. The super cold to flood the board as much water energy as possible. Chien-Pao some shivery chill to kind of get those water energies you want, and the Hailblade doing 60 times the amount of water energies you discard. Very powerful. Japan as well is definitely a sort of midline tier 2 sort of archetype, performing really well in the best of one sort of format and always kind of been pretty sort of played overall and being that sort of that top like 10% of most sort of played archetypes, which I really like about it. And if we look at the online sort of percentage here, it's at 11% of the meta, with again a 47% win rate of those, and also getting 5 wins on the online tournament. May not be as many as some of the other sort of decks around there, but Chien-Pao is really powerful, and I think really strong going into Worlds. So right now, let's look at some of the NAIC and the online decks, which I think are good sort of starting point to see exactly where Chien-Pao can evolve. So we saw a huge big surprise with NAIC, the rise of Arceus V-Star as sort of a really good support Pokemon. Now, before I get into it, we do obviously play the 3 copies of Chien-Pao, the 3-3 split of Baxcalibur with the 2 rare candies, which is definitely the most sort of common sort of build in this sort of build of these sort of decks. But why are we playing a 1-1 line of Arceus V-Star? We're not got any of these to really, are we accelerating energies to Luminium V? Well, we could, but we're using it for its Star Birth Star of Power. V-Star Power, searching for any 2 cards we might need is really strong. We could potentially Iona the opponent and then use Starbirth to get the Baxcalibur plus Rare Candy combo, which we desperately need to kind of get this deck rolling. Or we could potentially get the most important combo pieces here, 2 copies of Cross Witcher. Or 1 Cross Switcher and that 1 Canceling Clone. Really powerful archetypes, because not only can we help in the Mana Feast sort of matchup here, but Radiant Greninja is super strong and potentially be constantly reusing them, sort of affecting with it. A well-timed Avery plus the Cross Switcher Radiant Greninja could easily potentially wipe the opponents if they only potentially have 1 Pokemon on the bench. I absolutely love this sort of deck sort of thing here. It's a lot more aggressively in its draw sort of factor. Mew and Pokestop are really powerful sort of cards in here by kind of being that discarding effect with Pokestop, but also Mew kind of like searching for those extra pieces you might want to have. I think Cross Switcher I've absolutely loved, and this is a deck I've been piloting a lot of recently as Chien-Pao, and I've had really good success about it in that Gardevoir matchup. The last few ones win a couple games against it, which I really like in this style of deck. We do see the common sort of plays here, like the Iona, Boss, and Avery, and definitely the 4 copies of Irida is the most strongest sort of play here. But Heavy Ball is really good, kind of getting that extra piece you might want to have, that hidden sort of Mana Fee, which is really powerful, because Radiant Greninja can really pry on those Comfies and Curlies, which is why I absolutely love the 2 copies of Canceling Clone in this style of deck. And this is a list which I would be definitely playing for NAIC, because this list is perfect. I think definitely net deck this, really understand it, play loads of your matchups, because I think this works really well in lots of those sort of matchups which kind of can struggle with. The other build as well, we are still seeing the likes of Arceus as well, but we're seeing the 1-1 line of Bibarel. We're not seeing the Canceling Clones or the likes of Cross Switchers. We're not seeing those fun sort of plays here. Bibarel is really good because it's very much Iona proof. A lot of decks are definitely going to be very destructive with their Ionas. If you kind of go ahead and prizes, you kind of may not be able to draw. So having that 1-1 line of Bibarel is really strong. And Spiritomb as well can slow down the opponent's Luminions, as well as unfortunately your own, but also the Zacians and Genesects around there. So I think it's really powerful in that sort of respect. Does play an Energy Retrieval as well as 4 copies of Superior Energy Retrieval as well. No Super Rod, which I definitely don't like, because you can't reuse any of your Pokemon, or potentially put these water energies you might want to need them in the deck and search them out with Chien-Pao. But Energy Retrieval kind of like guarantees you kind of get the energies you might want, but they are much more reliant on the rare candies by playing 3 copies of them, and even 3 copies of Nestball. High counts on the ball sort of search here, and even playing the Lost City to kind of be that very destructive, kind of slowing down the Gardevoir players and Lost Box players as much as possible. Very devastating. I do think this is definitely a really interesting build of Chien-Pao, something which could be potentially be worried about, because they are playing that more destructive element with having 3 copies of Lost City. Now, this list here did in fact get top 4 at the late night special, the 114th one. And I wanted to showcase this one because it does play the 1/1 line of Palkia V-Star. This is a build which was definitely more common going to NAIC. Obviously, that's Subspace Squad is a really good other attacker. Does have a lightning weakness, which could be a bit worrying. But that Star Portal kind of accelerating 3 water energies is really, really powerful here. Does play the canceling clones who do have ways around like the Qinglu's, but more importantly, getting that KO on the mana field, going through that sort of effect here. But it is playing the 2 copies of Skater Spark, which I do think is a little bit outdated for the kind of play. Yes, it's really nice because you can go Chien-Pao, attach the 2 energies you find from there, retreat with Chien-Pao, put those energies back in hand, switch to the other Chien-Pao, search deck for 2 more energies, kind of get loads of energies, that sort of way here. But only having 2 Skater Spark and 1 Lost Vacuum is a bit of a worry factor, especially in the likes of high accounts of these lost cities as well as Paths to the Peak. Not many ways around it, I think, is a bit worried, and this deck is highly reliant on Paths to the Peak, with both Chien-Pao, Origin Form Palkia V-Star, as well as Luminion V and Radiant Greninja, heavily reliant on those sort of having their abilities. I do think this deck is quite interesting in that sort of play here. It does play a high council switching route, so you're not really too scared about the Marwile or stalling sort of factor here. But I do think this deck is kind of having that sort of merits as well. But I do think the 2 copies of Skater Park and 1 Lost Vacuum is definitely something which I would potentially change going forward to it. Now let's look at the matchups on Trainer Hill here. We can see, unfortunately, it isn't as lovely as we kind of thought it would do. It has a very good Lost Gudra matchup as well as Regieleki V and the Mirage on Regieleki. I think that sort of thing is kind of a bit of a given. The Gudra is not too bad at all because you can get those big one-hit kills. You don't have to rely too much on it stalling because you can just flood the board with loads of energies. And by the time they get 1 Gudra sort of powered up, you can get that KO'd, and they can struggle from there to get another one powered up. And Miraidon as well, you can easily get those sort of KOs in factor, because if you're not playing the Palkia sort of build here, they're not hitting for weakness, so that's also a really strong one. But we can see here that Mew, Lugia, Lost Box are definitely, and Gardevoir just a little bit, are definitely in the sort of red. Now, Lost Box and Fusion Mew are both definitely in the very red sort of category. And I do find Mew is definitely a bit of a struggle. Because of the high count of the velocities kind of going around there, getting rid of your Baxcaliburs, if you don't play as a way around it, can be very, very devastating. And making sure you can only have 1 Baxcalibur out, your opponent could really kind of like take the breeze on that way. Lost Box as well is definitely a bit of a struggle. Sableye, because it can easily get these KOs on the Frigibasses on the bench, even like getting rid of the likes of Manaphy's, can really open up the likes of them playing Greninja, and that can really struggle with it. Not having a huge amount of HP is kind of a bit of a struggle as well. With the Chien-Paos as well, you're kind of going from 2-prizer, 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 where you kind of want to have that Greninja chucked in somewhere, which could really help in the sort of matchup in that way. But unfortunately, that can really kind of like slow down the field, because if they don't get the KO on you, and there's just some bench damage here, you're not playing anything to really heal that sort and get rid of any of that damage in there. So that can definitely be a bit of a struggle as well. As well as some of these Pokemon like Mew have 310 HP, which is 6 energy discarding, which is a lot of energies you have to kind of have and play to get discarded. Yes, it's very easily to do, but it does require you have a lot of those things set up. And if they potentially are constantly going to KO your Baxcalibur and having Path to the Peak in play, it really, really hurts your consistency. Similar thing with Arceus Giratina, I do think it's a bit more favored in that sort of way, but they are playing a lot more Lost Cities as well as Path to the Peak. So again, really slowing down Baxcalibur, and I think that's one thing which kind of has against the sort of deck. The decks which are playing the really aggressive stadium cards and the very high HP with very high damage output, this deck can definitely really struggle with it. But overall, I think it is a pretty decent place in the match, in the sort of format. It's an 8%, I think it's going to be on its meta share on day 1. Not exactly too high, but I do think it's going to be pretty powerful overall. It's very, very strong. A lot of people like it. A lot of people like to play fun decks at Worlds, and if Chien-Pao wins, obviously it kind of gives a huge amount of things like Archie Stories and the Blastoise Keldeo build over in 2014. I think that's got to be a bit of that nostalgia fact, which I think could do really well. The Arceus build will probably be the most popular version of it. I think it really helps with consistency. It helps to also be another really good attacker, having a lot more HP, as well as also having a very relevant weakness. Fighting type, there aren't too many of them, so that's really good. And I do think potentially they could add some more single prize attackers to it. Kyogre, we could see a return of that Kyogre build, which was obviously very popular over in a couple of weeks ago, but which was playing some decks doing an 80 damage snipe. Potentially the likes of increase of those decks, which plays the Cross Switcher plus Cancelled Clone, Chien-Pao could be really, really powerful. And like I said, I think this is exactly the build which I will be playing at the World Championships because I absolutely love and adore Chien-Pao, especially the top 16 list, because I think it's super, super powerful. But what do you think? Do you think Chien-Pao is in a good place at Worlds? Leave a comment down below and I will kind of get back to you exactly see where I think Chien-Pao is going to be. I think it's a really good pick for the World Championships. And I hope this has been really helpful for your testing and kind of understanding exactly where you think this deck is kind of faced in the World Championship meta. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to join the channel. It means a lot to me and it can really help improve where the channel could be going. My name is Chien-Pao TCG. I'll be back in a few days for another video. See you then. Bye for now.